Hey guys, welcome to a quick tutorial for Kerbal Space Program for the lab tomorrow. The point of this is to get you up to speed on KSP so you're more ready to start the lab tomorrow. So I've got KSP started up already. This is what my screen looks like. Once you've got Kerbal Space Program booted up, you should look pretty much the exact same. So Kerbal Space Program is basically an aerospace simulator that allows you to build rocket ships and aircraft and put them in orbit and the atmosphere and fly them around and do cool stuff. There's a lot of orbital mechanics intuition in this game, so that's why we're kind of doing this for the lab. But anyway, to start the tutorial, the first thing you should do is navigate to Settings, if you haven't done so already, and go to Graphics, make sure full screen is enabled, and then change your screen resolution until it gets to about 2500 by 1080 to match the size of your screen at school. So then you're just going to apply, and then hit cancel. Wait for my screen to come back up. Cool, so I think you're going to hit Start Game. Click Resume Saved. And I've got a whole bunch of saves here, but the only one you should have is KSP Orbits Lab. So go ahead and click that, and then click Load. And once it's loaded up, it will take you to the Kerbal Space Center. Cool, so there are a whole bunch of buildings here. Spaceplane hangar, vehicle assembly building, launch pad. But we're just going to click on the tracking station. So now we've got, we're on a view of the planet Kerbin, which is the main sort of it's the Earth analogy. Everything in this game is scaled down by about a factor of 10 to make it easier to get spacecraft off the planet. And the only thing you should really see here is the planet and your spacecraft orbiting the planet already. So I've edited this craft into orbit to make it easier for it to proceed with the lab. So you're just going to click on the left beam here, Kerbal X Orbits Lab, and then you're going to click Fly. Oh, and actually before that, I'm going to get rid of this pane. You shouldn't see that pane at all. That's a mod that I've installed that shouldn't be on your computers. So just go ahead and click Fly. Cool, so now you should come to a view of your spacecraft. And so in order to look around, you're just going to click and drag the right mouse click. So just click that down and hold, and then drag it around, and you should be able to rotate. And then to scroll in and out, you could just use the mouse wheel. Cool, so this is our spacecraft. This is the spacecraft that I've edited into orbit. It's got some engines, it's got a fuel tank, it's got a capsule, it's got a parachute, it's got batteries, it's got solar panels, it's got landing legs, and it even has 3 astronauts in it. So let me just explain the interface right here. So on the top left we have the mission time. So this is plus 10 minutes. And then up here is our time warp. So if I click this button, for example, that'll make my time go 5 times faster. I'm just going to bring that back down to 1 for now. Up here in the middle, you have your altimeter. So it's showing me that I'm at about 100,000 meters altitude, which is a pretty standard orbit in KSP. Also got an atmosphere indicator. Over on the left here, the only thing you really have to pay attention, or I'm sorry, over on the right here, the only thing you have to pay attention to is the resources tab. So I'm just going to click that to make it permanent. So we've got stuff like electric charge, oxidizer, liquid fuel, ablator, and monopropellant. So if you run out of these, you're in trouble. If you run out of electric charge, you can't control your spacecraft. If you run out of fuel, you can't fly anywhere, etc., etc. Down on the right, you've got your astronauts. There's Jebediah, the most famous Kerbal. Over on the bottom left here, you've got your stage. So it'll tell you what stage you're in, as well as roll and yaw indicators. And then I've got the staging. So if I click these, it basically tells what sequence to enable all these parts in. So the first thing it's going to do if I press the space bar is activate the engines, but we're not going to do that quite yet. So once you get into orbit, once you're here, the first thing you should do is press F5 to quick save. So that will create a quick save file. So for example, if I mess up or I crash or something happens, I can just press and hold down F9 like so, and that will bring me back to where I was when I quick saved, which is really nice. Well, the next thing you're going to do is press the T key. That is going to turn on this SAS, or Stability Augmentation System, which will help keep your craft pointed in the right direction. So if you notice, it brought up this little blue light right here, and then it brought up all these little buttons. So if I press, for example, the prograde button, that will align my spacecraft with the velocity vector. If I press the retrograde button, that'll align my spacecraft with the anti-velocity vector. Cool. So that's one view. So if we come to the orbit view, so to get the orbit view, just press M. So now we're in orbit view. So we'll see kind of the same view we saw as before, the tracking station. If you zoom out a little bit, you should be able to see the moon, which is this one right here. So what we're going to do, we want to rendezvous with the moon. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to click set, left click on the moon and click set as target. So it's going to turn the orbital path green. Cool. So the next thing we want to do is create a maneuver to burn out to raise our apoapsis to the moon. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just, on some point, let's just say at the descending node, I'm going to left click on the orbit path of my spacecraft. Oops, that's not it. Right here, and click add maneuver. So what pops up is something called a maneuver node. And if you click somewhere else, it'll disappear and turn to something like that. To get it back, just click again. So a maneuver node is basically something you can use to create a maneuver, a burn, a thrust. So the two most important ones you have to pay attention to right now are this guy, which is prograde, and this guy, which is retrograde. So we're just going to click and drag the prograde one to the right. And as you can see, that's going to do a couple things. So first of all, it's going to raise our apoapsis up. And second of all, it's going to create this bar down here, which is basically how much delta V we have to use. It's also going to say how much time we have in the orbit until we reach that maneuver node, what our burn time for the node is, and when you should start that burn. Actually, I think your computers are not going to actually have this start burn in. But anyway, so we're just going to raise that up until, we're going to zoom out a little bit, raise that up until it gets to about the orbit of the moon. Cool. So you'll see these two little indicators. So that's where your closest approach is. So it's not quite there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click the center of the node and drag it along the path until I get an encounter with the moon, which looks like that, basically. Cool. Now whoops, okay, that's a little too much. So the goal is to basically get this moon periaps to about 20,000 meters. So I'm about 4,000 meters. That's a little close right now. So I'm just going to drag the prograde vector and see if that does anything. Sure did. So oopsie, this is a little sensitive, but let's see, 23,881 meters is my periaps. So that's exactly what I wanted. Great. So we have the maneuver set up. We don't need to do anything else. So I'm going to click M again to exit orbit view. And like I said, we have our staging on the left here. And also you'll notice that this has changed these numbers have changed to apoapsis and periapsis. But anyway, so the first thing we need to do is actually activate our engines. So we're going to right click the engines and click activate engine. Cool. Actually, before you do that, one thing I should have done was just press the X key, because that will disable all throttle. Cool. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to click this little button down here called maneuver until the ship aligns with the maneuver node. The engine's got a little jittery there. And so I'm still a little bit ways away. I'm still about 2 minutes away from... So my burn time is 45 seconds. So I'm going to start burning 23 seconds before the node actually starts. So I'm still about a minute and a half away from the node. So I'm going to press the period key to accelerate time by 5 times. You can press it again to do 10, but I'm just going to keep it at 5 because we're so close. And once we reach about 30 seconds, I'm going to press the comma key to disable it, to bring it back to 1x time acceleration. So once I hit 23 seconds, I'm going to press the Z key to bring my ship up to full throttle, which is now. And as you can see, my delta V meter has started ticking down. So I'm going to click M again to get into the orbit view. And I'm going to see that my apoapsis is slowly starting to raise. You can also see that here. Another couple things to notice is that my liquid, if I press M again to go back to the spacecraft view, my liquid fuel is slowly decreasing. I can kind of just zoom around, look around and see what's up. Kind of relax for a second. So we're going to let this delta V click down until this apoapsis is raised to where we want it to be. So I'm almost there. So once I'm almost done, I'm going to press the X key. So I'm going to press it now. So that kills my throttle. So I've still got about 16.7 meters per second of delta V to do. So in order to fine tune that, I'm just going to press the Shift key. So that will increase my throttle just a little bit. And as you can see, my delta V is slowly ticking down. So once it gets to about, so once it hits 0, I'm just going to press X. Almost there. So I'm going to press, I'm just doing Shift and X until I'm done. So it looks like we're about done. Cool. So it looks like I don't actually have a periaps on the moon, which means I'm actually going to collide with the moon. I don't really quite want that. You'll never quite match your maneuver node. You always have to make corrections. So I'm just gonna, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna click on the orbital path again to create another maneuver for a mid-course correction. And I'm gonna kind of play with these prograde and retrograde vectors again until I get a desirable periaps. Like I said, about 20,000 meters I want. So let's see. So it's 115,000. Oopsie. Oops, I went the wrong way. Let's see, periaps. 32,000. Almost there. 29,000. This is kind of finicky. Let's see, 27,000. Go a little more than that. Oops, I got rid of it again. There it is. 17,000. That's good enough. Okay, cool. So we're going to do the same procedure. So we're going to click the maneuver button to bring our spacecraft to point to the node direction. And then we're 56 minutes away from this burn. So we're going to accelerate time by about a factor of, let's see, 1,000. So we're really going down. And then we're going to decelerate by pressing the period key again to 100. So we're 7 minutes away, 5 minutes, 4 minutes. So I'm going to press period again. And then I'm going to press period again to slow time down again before my node. So we've only got about 30 seconds left. And then down to 5. And then down to 3. Cool. So now we're at our burn. So this is a 0.1 second, 1.7 meter per second delta V burn, which is really small. So I'm just going to press shift and then X. And that's it. That's my burn. 20,000 meters. Almost 20,000 meters. It's almost perfect, which is great. Okay, cool. So now we're all set up. So now we don't really have to do much else except watch the craft fly by. But we don't want to wait, you know, a couple hours for our spacecraft to get there. So again, we're going to warp time forward in the orbit view by a factor of 1,000. I'm going to do it again to 10,000 to speed up things, and then go back down to 1,000. Oopsie. And then so I'm about to enter the moon sphere of influence here. So now I'm in the moon sphere of influence. We can see our hyperbolic trajectory along the moon. So I'm going to speed up time just a little bit here until I get to my periaps, and then we're just about there. So I'm going to de-warp time to 1x again, and then I'm going to press the M key again to get the spacecraft view, and watch and marvel at where our spacecraft is. And we should be able to see Kerbin up above us. Yep, there it is. Cool. So I like to make it really pretty, so what I do is I press F2 to disable the hood. And I'm also going to press F5, so I'm going to press F5 again to quick save. And then I'm going to press F2 to disable the hood, and to make it so that nothing is here. Just the spacecraft and the moon. Cool. So once you've gotten to this point, you have technically concluded the lab, but you have a couple things you could do from here. So the easy thing you can do from here is just do nothing. The next thing, I'm going to press F2 again to re-enable the hood. The next thing you can do is, so once we leave the sphere of influence again, we're going to have some other Kerbin orbit. So one thing you can do is try and land this craft back at Kerbin. The way you do that is you'd get to apoaps out here and burn retrograde until you lower your periaps into the atmosphere. And then what you do is once you got into the atmosphere, you decouple this entire lower stage. So you just have the capsule and its ablative protection, and then you would deploy the parachute. And hopefully you'll land safely without burning up the atmosphere and killing your Kerbals. Anyway, the other thing you can do to make this really hard is you can actually try and land on the moon. So if you can notice, this thing actually has landing legs, which we can activate by pressing G. So if you can land on the moon, I'd be really, and you've never played this game before, I'd be really, really impressed. So if you want to try that, you go right ahead. And in order to do that, what I would recommend is burning right at periaps. That is your most optimal point to burn. Remember when we talked about during patch conics, that is the most optimal time to burn, which I'm right at here actually. And burn retrograde to lower all your speed. And then you can basically like fiddle with the thruster and the thrust to get it down to the moon's surface. And then you can come up again and try and land back on Kerbin. But so those are a couple of options you can do. Another thing you can do is I'm just going to hit escape and click Space Center to go back to the Space Center. And you can go ahead and, if you don't want to do orbit stuff, you can go ahead and build your own craft. So I'm going to click the vehicle assembly building. And if we want to take a look at it, you can either build your own by starting with one of these cockpits and adding onto it, or you can click open and load a default craft. So for example, the craft that I borrowed that lander from was Kerbal X. This guy, so it's a full-blown spaceship. It's supposed to land on the moon. And in order to launch on the launch pad, you can click launch. And in order to launch, we're going to pretty much do the same procedure we did in orbit. So that is pressing, let's see, it's loading. So that is pressing the T key to enable stability augmentation system, pressing Z to bring our throttle all the way up, and then to activate our stage and all these engines down here, I'm just going to press spacebar. There we go. You can crash it into the ground if you want, which is what I'm going to do. So I'm about to run out of fuel here on a couple of my engines, so when those go out like those, I'm just going to press spacebar again to stage the craft. So if you want to stage something, you just stage the craft. And I'm just going to put this straight into the ground, because I don't want to put it into orbit, and I'm going to let you figure that out. But yeah, there we go. So just press escape and just hit, if you want to go back to where you were, just click revert to vehicle assembly. Great. So once you're all done with the lab, you're just going to leave from wherever you were. You're just going to exit Kerbal Space Program. I'm sorry, you're going to go to quit to main menu. And you're going to click, wait for this to load for a sec. You're going to click resume saved. You're going to go down to KSP Orbits Lab, and you're just going to click delete. Just delete that. Cool. So that'll make sure that it's up and ready for the next lab, because we don't want them using your save. Awesome. So it's gone. Cool. And then when you're done, just exit Kerbal Space Program, and that's the end of the tutorial. Thanks. See you in lab tomorrow.